All right, welcome to Buddy Book Club. I'm Dylan here with the best looking pair of long, milky white legs I've ever seen. Keith, what's up, buddy?
Arr. I don't know. Hey, what's up?
Did you notice the one weird part of that book was that Stadler, or whatever, Ellie Stadler, everyone was commenting on her legs. It's like, Crichton, chill out. 400-page book. You don't have to keep talking about her legs.
She gets there and they're like, all right, take care of Malcolm. It's like, all right. That's all she does the whole book.
Well, she ran around a lot. Use those legs for good. Well, we're breaking down some bestsellers here at the Buddy Book Club, and this week we're discussing Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us about any past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs or Twitter or Instagram, Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. Keith, Jurassic Park, I don't know why, but I feel like this book it's a long time coming for me. I, like everyone else, definitely saw it like fairly early on and was like obsessed with it, but the book was a little too far-fetched for me at the time. I think I got it like at an airport bookstore, which are great, by the way. I fucking love a good airport bookstore. And I started reading on a plane and was like, nope. Like, I was 13 or something. I was like, nah, this is way over my head. And never picked it back up. So I'm glad we finally got here. Have you read this book before? Do you love the movie? I kind of need this before we get into the actual categories here.
I didn't even know it was a book, honestly.
Oh.
Until obviously recently. I remember liking it as a kid, but it doesn't really cross my mind as a top movie. I know that for most people that's blasphemy, but...
So were you not into dinosaurs as a kid?
I was when I was super young. I mean, who wasn't?
Yeah, I mean, super young. Yeah, totally. I don't have dinosaur posters in my room.
That was funny in the book. They're like, every kid loves dinosaurs. And I was like, that's true. Why is that? And trains, to be fair. So, but certain times you grow out of those things, D-Man. It's time for you to admit.
I think you were like diddled by a train or something, because you don't like dinosaurs, you don't like trains. Something bad happened to you. There was like Thomas the Tank Engine dinosaur crossover episode, and it just so happened when you went to see Father O'Leary.
Yeah, well, let's keep that off the air.
Okay, Jurassic Park, stock up. What do you got?
Stock up. You know this is coming, D-Man. It's been a long, long time coming. The chicken wing theory, stock up. It really has all come together. Like John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale and Serendipity. Pretty much everything's just coming together right now. We had the blog released on the chicken wing theory. We had the Super Bowl.
You're talking about the blog on buddybookclub.com. Do you want to do a quick couple minutes about what the theory is? Otherwise, people are going to be confused.
For the layman's out there, the theory is basically that chickens are bred with extra wings so that they can meet the demand for chicken wings, especially around the Super Bowl. So if you want to find more about that, you can go to thebuddybookblog.com and read 2,000 words on it. But in the beginning of the book, it's like 100 pages of how genetic modification of animals is completely normal and feasible. If we brought up to Michael Crichton, hey, could chickens have extra wings? He'd be like, yeah, that's child's play.
Yeah, he would literally he'd scoff at you.
It really brought a tear to my eye reading all these things about how science can easily do this and knowing that all along I've been right. Did you end up reading the blog?
I'm just waiting for a particularly horrific bowel movement so I can pull that up when I'm going to spend 30 minutes on the toilet.
And so you can read a particularly horrible bowel movement as well while you're taking one.
No. I'm sure it's going to be wonderful and eye-opening. I'm going to have so many questions. Like I want maybe to have even a separate podcast just on that. But I need 30 minutes to myself in peace to really focus on it.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that.
This book has tons of genetic engineering stuff. I mean, that's the backbone of it, is the idea that genetic engineering has gone leaps and bounds. And it has. And, this book was written in 1990, I want to say. I remember also as a kid when they're like cloning sheep and cloning cows, and it was like, oh, holy smokes, like what's going to happen with the future? Like genetic engineering is going to be crazy. And then Gattaca, fucking love Gattaca. And that just made a lot of sense. Just like this book, which is, one of the reasons I like it so much, just it makes logical sense. It might be far-fetched scientifically, but if someone explains to you, it's like, yeah, that checks out. But since then, we haven't seen a lot. Well, now when it's talking about genetic engineering or, humans combining with robots or whatever, it's some guy who puts an implant in his arm so he can unlock his front door. It's not creating dinosaurs. But they are trying to bring back the dodo. So...
Oh, yeah.
Talk about chaos theory. Butterfly flaps his wings. A dodo flaps his wings in South America, and another asteroid comes in and gets us. So
they could have done what the movie did, which was like, so the mosquito bites a dinosaur, then gets frozen, and then they genetically clone it. That's all I needed. This book was like, no. we're going to go into deep discussions on how this possibly could take place. Like, Michael's like, I'm flexing my muscle. I did the research. I'm fucking putting it all in the book. I was like, all right, respect that.
Crichton was a certifiable genius, so it seems. He went to Harvard, got his MD, but was like, nah, I don't want to be a doctor. He was like, nope, I'm good. And just wanted to be a writer, was obsessed with all the sciencey stuff. I don't know if you like his other stuff, but yeah, he's very, very, very intelligent. My first stock up is the DOS operating system.
Okay, yeah.
Were you into computers when you had to like boot up operating systems yourself?
CD /
Yeah, because I remember like my first computer games like Duke Nukem, and you had to actually like execute the request to play it. You know, it wasn't double clicking on your desktop. We don't have to do any of that stuff anymore, but you know who did have to do that stuff? Timmy, little Timmy there. He is a computer whiz, and I can only think that this came because he was playing a couple DOS games.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone else there, all the adults, no understanding of computers whatsoever. Everyone is part of this park's service, but yet no one knows how to put the friggin' lights back on. And so they're just like, who should we have do it? Here, give it to this 10-year-old kid. And he figures it out. So stock up DOS operating system, stock up Duke Nukem, whatever games you were playing, number crunchers, gizmos and gadgets. Go for it, Timmy.
Timmy was just TJ Henderson from Smart Guy, right? That's who he was. He wasn't an 11-year-old. He was like a 30-year-old that was in an 11-year-old's body because he was a genius.
He had some savant syndrome. Talk about being obsessed with dinosaurs. She was like telling Dr. Grant what's up. He's like, chill out, Dr. Grant. No, this is the case. What else do you have for stock up?
Stock up island life versus boat life. This one's a little far-reaching, but
yeah.
So I know that the people that were on the island were terrorized, and it was a tough week there for them. A lot of people died, whatever.
I think it was like 2 days, but yeah.
The people on the boat, they had the worst week of all time. So the people on the boat get there, right? They're dropping off all the supplies. They get called, and they're like, get out of there. You don't have time to drop off all your supplies. It's like, well, I have to make another route back. Yeah, whatever. We don't give a fuck about you. They kick them off. So they start their trek back, which is a day and a half. They have raptors on board. They're just like driving back. They finally get back to the island. And before they can dock up, they're like, no, turn the fuck back around and kill those raptors. We just spent 2 days trying to kill them, but you just do it quickly. And they're like, but we haven't got any fuel and we haven't got any food. So they turn back around and then they just immediately kill the raptors. They have no problems with them at all. That was a much worse week than the people on the island had. They're eating fucking caviar and ice cream. The boat people just took care of business.
So the casual boat ride where nothing is trying to kill you.
They had raptors on board.
They were babies.
They had raptors
they were baby raptors.
Youngins.
So you're saying the boat people had to kill younglings?
Yeah, they'd kill young. Oh, nicely done. Nicely done, sir.
Okay, it's a hot take, that's for sure.
I've got a couple more coming. Right when I said the chicken wing theory, I was like, now I'm off. You opened the floodgates. That's on you.
I hope you had a Kovo before this.
Oh, yeah.
All right, my second stock up is Donald Gennaro. And my only understanding of this character, and I think he's a combination of characters in the movie, was from his movie character, who's just this absolute Poindexter, just concerned about the money at the park, ill-fitting pants, like doesn't know what's going on, and immediately gets eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex while he's sitting on a toilet. Just not a good look. Not a good look at all. But Gennaro in the books is a gamer. He's an absolute gamer. He gets the short shrift in the movies for sure, but in the book he's like Muldoon's right-hand man. Anytime Muldoon's like, hey, I need to go out and go see if anyone's alive, he's like, yeah, I'm with you. It's like, someone needs to hold this rocket launcher while I'm doing it. It's like, yeah, I got you, no problem. Okay, these raptors are now free. We got to go get them. He's like, yep, I'm with you. Then he kind of loses it a little bit, but I totally understand when it's like, we're going to go into a velociraptor nest after they've survived this whole time. They're like, we're going to have to go into a velociraptor nest, and we can't kill them right away. We have to go and count all the eggs, which just seems preposterous.
It didn't make any sense to me.
It didn't make any sense.
Why were they doing
all.
that?
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Because, like, also, how are you going to be sure that you caught all the eggs? You know, like, or counted them all.
Yeah. And they're like, and we're going to bomb it right after and not be able to count it after the fact. So it's like, wait.
Yeah,
what?
yeah. So But I understand at that point where he had some trepidation. It was like, I don't really want to go down this hole. And it seemed like a Goonies type slide where you have to like slide down into this cave. Like, who knows if you can even get back out. But up until that point, he was an absolute gamer. He had no business he had no business doing any of that stuff. He was just the money man, and he was going to protect what his investment was. And then he turned into fucking Rambo. So Gennaro may or may be my favorite character, but either way, got short-shrifted by Spielberg, so I blame him. Spielberg, step it up, brother.
Yeah, I didn't get the whole point of they're like, you're responsible for this. This is your island and all this shit. I'm like, he just put money into it. Like, he probably has like 15 other investments like this. He had probably no idea what's going on the island. But Hammond can stay behind. Don't worry about Hammond.
Yeah,
it's like,
let him
no,
eat ice cream.
Hammond's the one. Yeah, why is he getting off scot-free? Hammond didn't have to get in the action in any way, ever.
And I get it at the same time that he made an investment, didn't do his due diligence, so shame on him.
I mean, I have stock in Apple. Is it my fault that they have slave laborers, you know?
Yeah, like what's your ties to the cobalt mine? Do you have to go look at the cobalt mines and defend yourself?
Yeah, yes. They're like, Keith, you're coming out here. You did this. Like, what? I just bought stock. Like, you know what you did.
Okay, cool. Let's get into stock down. What do you got?
Stock down, and this is going to be a long one, but chaos theory and literally anything Malcolm said in this whole book, stock down.
Don't say it.
You like Malcolm?
Of course I did.
We might have a big issue here. I'm not going to use any hyperbole here, D-Man, when I say that Malcolm was the worst character in any book we've read so far. And we've read some bad characters. Malcolm was easily the worst. One of the best parts of this book was when he died and stopped talking. I was happy. He was just the worst. And don't think that Malcolm from this book is the same as Malcolm in the movie. Don't get those twisted. They're not the same people. These are two different characters completely. First note I wrote was, wow, this Malcolm dude is pretty arrogant. Like, before I even knew his character. And he's full of this know-it-allness that's just throughout the whole book. Just has this arrogance and you're wrong. Oh, why? I'm not going to tell you why, but you'll find out. What? When you read the blogs, D-Man, when I complain about something, do I give a solution every time? I do. I give a fucking solution on how to fix things. This guy doesn't give one solution to anything. And all he does is he goes on these Shakespearean monologues that no one stops him, no one cuts him off, about how he's right and how everything's bad and it's chaos theory. It doesn't make any sense, D-Man. I'm not done yet either. And if you don't think his personality's bad, just look at his actions. He first gets there, super creepy to Dr. What's her name?
Sadler, yeah.
Sadler. Just like checking her out, talking about her probably pale legs you'd mentioned in the beginning. Mm-hmm. He runs away when the kids and Dr. Grant get into any sort of
Not a good look.
Terrible, complete coward. And while they're doing everything to save him and they're giving him medicine and they're like calling in helicopters, all he's doing is shitting on everyone there. Oh, I'm smarter than you and I know these things. I knew this all along. And here's a hot take, D-Man, but I think this is really what was going on in this book. I'm convinced that to prove his point that he was right, he's the one that turned the computers off. He's the one that turned the power off. He's the one that fucked everything up because he wanted the Malcolm effect to be real. And that was the most important thing to him, kid.
It had nothing to do with Ned. Ned had nothing to do with it.
And chaos theory, it's just Murphy's Law. That's how they described it. They're like, anything that could go wrong is going to go wrong. It's like,
well, I'm going to defend his chaos theory just in the fact that The Butterfly Effect is a really good movie. I liked it a lot. One thing I did appreciate of him was that everyone, and this still happens today, like with global warming and whatnot, people are like, oh, we have to save the planet. We have to save the planet. And it's like, no, we just have to save us. Like, the planet is going to be chill. The planet goes through cycles. We're a parasite. It's going to rid it of us, and life will still continue in one form or another. It just won't be human life. And so everyone kept saying, like, we got to save the planet. He's like, no. You guys are just trying to talk about saving you. Like, it has nothing to do with the planet itself. So, I was with him there.
You could say that in one sentence, though, and not give 3 paragraphs on why.
Well, I think Malcolm also was kind of like the voice of Michael Crichton in this. He was the author's voice. He did have some level of, not like exposition, but like the whole idea behind it all. The idea of chaos theory and the idea that people think they can do whatever they want and become gods and, make life happen and just think they can control it when we really can't control anything. A lot of the stuff I enjoyed. I was a Malcolm fan. I can understand your point, though, in that you thought he was a preachy douchebag.
That's a good way to sum it. I mean, I also just didn't think any of his examples, you know how like you read like Freakonomics, right? And they use such good examples that they click in immediately and you'll remember them forever. And a perfect example of that is he says science isn't doing anything good. He uses an example of cleaning. He says 1930s, we clean the same amount that we clean in the 1930s as we clean now. Science and technology haven't helped advance those. What are you talking? Like 1930s, there was like shit on the roads. They just they pour fucking trash on the street. The reason we're taking the same amount of time to clean now is because we have much higher cleaning standards. Like germs were literally just came to the forefront in like the 20s.
Yeah, which is funny because I'm reading this book on the side or listening to it. It's called Consider the Fork. It's about like the history of food and eating in the world. And the author there says the same thing, which I found to be funny because I've never heard anything like that before. But you're talking about all the kitchen gadgets, basically all the kitchen gadgets that make cooking and kitchen stuff easier. But yet we still now, and this was written, I think, like early to mid 2000s, we still now spend just as much time in the kitchen as we did in like the 1940s. Instead of going out and buying a cake that you could just buy, like you end up trying to make one and then something else happens and you end up having to buy it again. I'm telling it terribly. She had a very interesting point about it, but it's the same idea. And the cleaning stuff is actually true. Like I looked that up. My first lockdown is grandparents. So normally grandparents are like the best. You know, those are the adoring grandparents. Your mom's like, no, we can't go out for ice cream. It's a Tuesday. And, you know, Papa comes to town and he's like, hey, let's go for McDonald's and a soft serve. It's like, fuck yes. Like I at least when I was a kid, we couldn't eat fast food. We couldn't do any of that stuff. We couldn't watch TV. And my grandfather came to town and the guy only consumes sugar. Like he doesn't drink water. He drinks Pepsi. And so not only would he bring all of this contraband, like it was like heavyweights, like he brought all this contraband into our house, like smacks and honeycomb, frosted flakes. It was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, this is amazing. But then for dinner, he'd take us out to McDonald's, like take us to the park and then take us to McDonald's. And then we get to watch TV and he'd watch like Homicide. And I was 8. I was like, I'm going to stay up with Papa and watch TV. And we'd be watching Homicide. I was like, this is fucking wild, just eating frosted flakes. But our boy Hammond here, he does not give a fuck about his grandkids. They are literally dying to Tyrannosaurus attacks in the jungle. He has no idea where they are, and he's eating ice cream in his cave being like, dang, this park is really not going to fail. I mean, the only reason he brought the kids, he says this, the only reason he brought the kids was to make it look good for the lawyer. He's built this amazing park, and the whole time he's saying, oh, I just did it for all the children out there, like the wonder that it'll bring. He has his own grandkids there, and he says he only did it so that the lawyers will think it's safe. What? And then at the end, when Timmy gets this whole park back in order, he's got no respect for his grandson. He's like, where the hell are these kids? Whatever. It's like, your grandson's literally putting this park back in order for you. And talk about one of the best comeuppances in literature that I've read is that then the kids are acting as kids and like playing with the dinosaur sounds, which scares the shit out of the grandfather, and he falls down a ditch and ends up getting eaten by a bunch of tiny dinosaurs. That whole relationship thing, even though they never really talk to each other, like the grandfather and the grandkids like never really interact, that whole relationship I thought was so well done, just in how much of a dick he is to his grandkids and how at the end they end up pretty much murdering him accidentally.
Because I remember in the beginning of the book I was like, yeah, those are his grandchildren, right? But by the end he could have been like, these damn kids that keep on running amok. And I was like, oh, I guess they aren't his I didn't think they were his grandchildren by the end, because I was like, yeah, there was no way he'd treat these kids like this if they were his grandchildren. It'd be
like at the end of Dennis the Menace if Walter Matthau's like, all right, come home, grandson. It's like, wait, what? That's your grandson? That's the way he was treating them.
Fine stock down. Very, very similar. Kids, stock down. You know my theory on about kids in media and any portrayal. They're just used as a way to drag the plot down or to suck. Like, that's what 90% of... No, that's what it is. Like, if you look at... Take. Oh, you didn't know that? Like, name any show where there's kids involved.
Malcolm in the Middle.
Sorry, shows that aren't based around the kids. So, like, obviously, like... Stranger Things is awesome. You know, that movie 8 Mile, 8 something, that was good. You know what I'm talking about.
Wait, talking about Super 8?
Yeah, Super 8.
Okay.
But if there's shows that are based around adults that have kids, the kids are only used as plot devices to annoy the shit out of the parents and be like troublesome. Yeah. That's all they do. This is no different with Tess. Tess, if Malcolm wasn't in this book, thank God for Malcolm, Tess would be almost number 2
Who's
worst character ever.
You mean Lex?
Lex. Sorry, yeah. Lex. Yeah.
My only hate really is just Lex. I mean, she just says I'm hungry and wants to play baseball the whole time, which maybe she's the ultimate hardo in this, in that she doesn't give a fuck about these dinosaurs. Like if a T-Rex runs at her, she's like, arm's a little too short to play fat catch. Like, well, let's move on to the next one. She's not even scared of it. She's just like...
She had PTSD after it. And then 2 seconds later, she's like, fucking Timmy, what a pussy. I'm like, wait, what's going on? Wait, what happened?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that Michael Crichton wanted to write this book from the perspective of the kids, from Timmy probably. Like he wanted to write it from a kid's perspective, but then the publishers were like, nah, no one's going to read that book. So instead he turned it into this like horror sci-fi book, and which is also great. But then that's also why the movie Spielberg goes more in that direction. Granted, Crichton, I think, wrote the screenplay for it, but he goes more in that direction of like, okay, like let's make this a PG-13 movie and make it more from the kid's perspective, where James Cameron, who also wanted to make the movie, wanted to make it like Aliens, but dinosaurs, which would have been fucking super cool too. I mean, I love the Steven Spielberg version, but he wanted to make this like a rated R horror movie. Just interesting takes. Like, what are they called? Sliding doors or whatever? Like the sliding doors between, if Cameron would have won out, I'd be interested to see what that movie would have turned out like. And also, why are they making all these terrible new Jurassic Parks? Instead, just be like, okay, James Cameron, here's $1 billion. You do your version of the original one. Why not? Change the plot points a little bit. You can change the ending, but just make it the same story. It'd be phenomenal. I'd be totally down for that, as opposed to like, I keep turning on my TV, it's like Jurassic World Dominion. I'm like, pass. I'm sorry. Hard pass.
Well, my theory, another one here coming, is that Lex was initially written as a dog. It makes way more sense. She's constantly chasing a ball around, right? She's alerting the dinosaurs by barking or just like, what was she doing? Coughing or sniffling or something?
Yeah, vomiting. She puked, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I don't know what she was. She did something where she kept on like, anytime there was dinosaurs near, she would cough or something. And I think it would just make more sense. I mean, because all she did, you already pointed out, is alert the dinosaurs at the worst moments, complain, shit on Timmy, and then celebrate and be like, we did it, we finally made it, guys. And then obviously something bad would happen right after she did that. So, yeah, if she was just a dog character, I think it would have been made more sense that the dog ran away and like the dog was alerting the dinosaurs. You wouldn't feel bad for the dog. Like, that's a dog. Yeah. But when it's a human person, you're like, what is wrong with this person? Also, can we point out the fact that Timmy's on the computer? He's 11.
He's 11? Confirmed? Okay.
I looked it up, and she's supposed to be 8. Mm-hmm. She's acting like she's like 3 years. I thought she was 3 years old. And Timmy's like typing away, and she's like, why are you doing that, Timmy? I was like, let him work on the computer. And she's like, Timmy, you click quadrant 7, then the prognosis there is that's not working, and the augmentation. And I'm like, how does she know these words, and why is she reading off the screen? Did that make any sense to you? You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
She's like reading off the screen, and it's at like a college level reading level, and she's just like, a second ago she like was sucking her thumb, and now she's able to read a computer screen and tell Timmy he's doing things wrong. It's like, what's going on here?
There are many adults that suck their thumbs. Just saying, FYI.
Go on.
Not
I'm
me,
getting fired up this pod.
You are getting
I'm
fired
real
up.
fired up.
I like this. You have a lot of feelings about Jurassic Park, specifically 8-year-olds and mathematical theorists. Well, this might help you. My next talk down is science. So we have Dr. Wu, who's the geneticist, and him and Hammond are just arrogant and think they have complete control. Dr. Wu doesn't get it. Life finds a way. Also, why is Dr. Wu wondering why it's a big deal that amphibian DNA was spliced in? They're talking about sex changes here. It's very clear to me when Dr. Grant was asking, why is amphibian DNA? Because when you're taught in school, it's like, oh, a lot of amphibians can shift sexes, change that. So it's like, Dr. Wu's a geneticist. Actually, this is his job. And he's like, I wonder why Dr. Grant was so interested in that amphibian DNA. And then not only the geneticist, but paleontology in general. Dr. Grant, big fan, all right? Big fan. But, what do you really get from studying bones? He said the pterodactyls are not dangerous because they eat fish. They're fucking flying crocodiles with 15-foot wingspans that are swooping on you. If a bat swoops on me, I'm concerned. Buddy, you study bones. This is a real fucking animal. It is going to eat you. I don't understand why he was so convinced that they were safe. It's like seeing an alien life form and just being like, no, it must be friendly. Always assume the worst. Didn't we learn anything from chaos theory? If it's going to go wrong, it will go wrong.
Murphy's Law, you mean?
Dr. Grant, stick to the bones. Get off the real life creatures, okay? Science down, Timmy up. That's all that you need to know.
I also thought, too, that this book was actually really ahead of its time in terms of self-driving cars and computers counting things and things like that. I was like, holy shit, this is 1990? Like, this is pretty cool, but then again, all that stuff comes back to haunt them, so it wasn't really that good.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Crichton's like a genius.
Pretty brilliant of him. And they're all electric cars. It's basically invented Tesla in this book.
Yeah, fuck you, Elon Musk. Where's Michael Crichton's money? Get it to his estate. What else you ever stock down?
That was it.
So I had late bloomers. I'm a big Reddit guy, so in the Get Motivated subreddit, it'll be this scientist didn't even start, that's famous or whatever, didn't even start doing science until he was 50, and this philosopher didn't write this until they were 70. And well, in Jurassic Park, all of these people are in their 20s and early 30s, and they're at the top of their field. They go through it at the beginning, like, oh, Dr. Grant is 27 years old, and Sadler's 24. She's a grad student, but she's the best paleontologist in her field, and Malcolm's 30. It's like, fucking Timmy's 11 and he's a computer genius. The only old person in this is Hammond. And I'm just sitting here as a 35-year-old man being like, it's over for me. It's like when I watch professional sports and now I'm at the age where the oldest people in the league are my age.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's all done.
I mean, you got to think about the inflation since 1990 too, kid. We're way past.
Way past it. So
now, if you don't hit it by peak by 18, you're done.
If you're not dancing on TikTok by 18,
yeah,
you're
exactly.
screwed.
We had some solid stock downs this one. Science, kids, late bloomers.
And I also had a quick thing on Lex, just stock down like the beauty and majestic nature of dinosaurs. Because you would think if you go to this park, it's like, holy smokes, this is amazing. It's like looking at the stars on a clear night, the whole world changes for you. You know, those moments when it just seems like you're so small and the world is so big. Lex doesn't give a shit, you know, like we said, she just wants to play catch. She could also just be dense though. I mean, she only has baseball and food on the mind. She's facing a dinosaur who wants to snack on her spleen, and she's just like, nah, is there ice cream in the freezer? I want ice cream. And I do respect that because I fucking love ice cream. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. And I think if I was to face my own demise, I would at least want some ice cream first. Did you have a favorite scene in this one?
My favorite was when Grant in the laboratory fighting the raptors. And he was like, all right, I got to get these eggs out here. And I know raptors like eggs. And it was just like, you're in the mind of Grant. We didn't have the fucking kids complaining to him left and right. And he was just like me versus raptors. And I was like, all right, this is what the book is. I was locked in for that scene. What about you?
I liked, and I don't even know if it was my favorite scene, but it was a tone changer when Ned gets fucked up by the Dilapidorsaur or whatever the case is. Because like up until that point, it was pretty like a scientific-y book. We had seen some dinosaurs and you know, everything, but nothing was really gruesome. You know, it was just kind of a story, and I enjoyed it. But at that point, I was going into it with the expectation that I saw from the movie. I was like, okay, this thing's going to spit in his face. It's going to jump in his car. The car's going to rock around, and next scene kind of thing. But all of a sudden, it's like it's ripping out his intestines and eating his entrails as he's screaming. And I was like, holy shit, like this is not the Jurassic Park I grew up with. So at that point, I was then like geared up for the rest of the book because I knew there was more to come and there was more people to die. And I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty fucked up. Like some stuff's going to go
Yeah,
down.
no one died a quick death. Every death was like, and they're eating out his intestines while he's still alive, mind you. Like he was feeling everything. I was like, Jesus. Like, all right.
Yeah, people use the phrase "eaten alive" like so often. I feel like, I'm getting eaten alive by these mosquitoes. Michael Crichton just was like, every single person will be eaten alive. Like, I am making this as literal as possible. But at the same time, I think that's fairly common. I follow Nature's Metal on Instagram, which if you don't, do, but it's also pretty fucked up. But you see that so much in nature itself is like lions, a pack of lions eating a water buffalo. It's like, okay, like let's just slit open its stomach and just eat all the good parts while it's still living. So, oh, good God. Nature is fucking metal. Holy shit. So yeah, I would imagine that Jurassic Park would be similar. And why not? A little tasty snack on some human entrails? I'd say pick your character, but I don't even know if you had a favorite character. You just hated them all. Maybe Dr. Grant?
I mean, Dr. Grant's obviously like the G, but I also liked Hammond.
No, get the fuck out of here.
I mean, it's more satirical, but he told Malcolm to shut up a couple times, which I appreciated. He was like, "Yo, can this guy just shut up?" And he actually argued against Malcolm, and Malcolm had no response to anything other than like just went in another monologue. The other thing I thought was funny about Hammond was, you mentioned it earlier, he's like, "I made this park for kids," and then they go on the ride, and it's like, "And now we're gonna show you these kids a goat that's helplessly strapped to like a pole getting absolutely mauled and murdered by a Tyrannosaurus Rex for the kids." It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, it seemed like a Simpsons episode.
yeah. It's like, yeah, that seems like kids would love that.
Just what kids want to see. Dr. Grant also, I don't know why they made this change. Probably, I mean, I guess I know why, because they ended up getting stuck with them. But in the movie, he hates kids. That's his thing. Is he can't fucking stand kids. He just hates the whole idea. And in the book, he loves kids. He's like, I'm totally down for kids. Kids are great.
Yeah, he's a saint in the book.
He's
Doesn't complain.
A great guy. Yeah, he's totally down and like takes accountability, takes ownership of stuff. Like, I need to take care of this because no one else will. He's just an awesome guy in the book. Also, from the movie itself, I don't know if you knew this little Easter egg, but remember when they're flying in the helicopter at the beginning? Maybe you don't. I don't know when you saw it, but
I haven't seen the movie in forever.
Oh, okay. Well, they're flying in the helicopter, and Dr. Grant can't figure out how to get the seatbelts fastened because he can't find the like male piece. So he just like ties two of the like sockets together. That's basically saying life finds a way because he takes the two female pieces and creates like a seatbelt with it. So it's a real, I love those stuff in movies where it's just not even really discussed, and it just makes total sense though. Oh, two females, boom, we got a seatbelt out of it. And you take two females or whatever, and all of a sudden you got a baby dinosaur. What do we love? I
mean, I already mentioned that. I thought it was super well researched. There was a lot of interesting stuff in there. I think I texted you after like the first 2 hours of reading, and I was like, "Yo, this book's money." Like, it was because it was super in the weeds, and it was like, this is cool stuff. So I really thought that was good. Everything was grounded in reality. He's like, no, I will prove to you that this is something that could happen. It wasn't just, like I said, he could have just been like, yeah, and then we cloned him and it worked, and I'd been like, that's good enough for me. Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, here's how we did it.
Well, I agree with you, and it's got these big ideas with big science behind it. I mean, the first quarter of the book or third of the book is all these big science ideas, but it's all stuff that's very, you can follow it. It's all easy. We're both laymen's, and I never felt like you said, like you're in the weeds, but I never felt like I was lost. He just did such a good job of not dumbing it down, but also not making it too technical. It was just perfectly played that all of it made sense, all of it seemed rational, and it really set us up for what was coming. And because you spent that whole time doing that like rational science stuff, I believed there was dinosaurs. Like, I was like, okay, yes. Like, this thing exists somewhere. I'm convinced there is an island in the real world where this exists. And like, they read Jurassic Park and were like, oh shit, like this guy's onto us. Like, who's this Crichton guy? The DNA research, the paleontology, the chaos theory, it's all so well done. I mean, chaos theory, I can kind of explain it at this point. Don't ask me to, but I can kind of explain the beats based on what he wrote.
Yeah, and also the reason the movie is so good is because he laid the groundwork so well. Because I think a lot of problems with a lot of the movies that are science fiction based or things like that is that they don't have a ton to pull from, or like they don't grasp it completely. Whereas he's like, I'm going to give you so much shit that you just cherry pick the best stuff and put it in there and like run with it. And like that's what they did.
It was so genius in the movie to make it that like amusement park ride where it explains how they got the dinosaur DNA and like how it works. Mm-hmm. Okay, we dig until we find this amber, and then we find a mosquito. We take his DNA, and what we don't have, we patch it together with other animals, which in that scene in the movie, they use a frog as the example, which ties into the whole amphibian thing from the books, but they don't really say, you know, that's how then they could reproduce. Even in the movie, it was like 3 minutes, and I was totally like, yep, that's totally doable. I was actually, when I was a kid, I remember being like, we got to find some fucking amber with mosquitoes in it because we could recreate dinosaurs. Yeah. One of the things I love was good slow burn in a book. We just don't get that too often. I feel like it's really like dives right into it. We read a lot of like thrillers and stuff, and they always start off with either a murder or some ideas that something really bad's going on. And this is just talks about science for the first bit. They don't even explicitly state that Jurassic Park is a dinosaur park until 2.5 hours into the audiobook. So I don't know how many pages that is, but they don't even state that it is a dinosaur park.
Does the actual physical book have pictures? Because I can't imagine reading this book without seeing the movie first. Because like I'd be like, there's a stegosaurus. I'm like, what the hell is that again?
It doesn't have pictures, but what you're going to hate is that each section of the book, so each section is broken, it's like 7 sections, and then there's chapters within there. Each section has an illustration, and it's fractals based on the chaos theory. Sorry, Keith.
What is that? What does fractals mean? What does that mean?
It's those images. I mean, you see it in like flowers and seashells and mountain ranges. He was kind of explaining, Malcolm was explaining it as like a mountain. Like if you look at the shape of a mountain and then you pick up a rock in that mountain, it has like the same shape. It's kind of like how smaller things become bigger. What about hates? What do you got?
I actually thought the park was set up pretty well. I don't know if maybe I'm crazy, but if you're like in a fortress, right? And it's like, this is a well-defended fortress, but the person that built the fortress then goes to your enemy and says, here's all the back doors and here's how to defeat the fortress. And here's all, it's like, then yeah, the fortress was set up well, but you just got stabbed in the back by the person that set it up. And that's what happened, right?
Well, kind of, but it's the same thing with the power. They live on an island off of Costa Rica. Like there's going to be a hurricane or something like that. You have to prepare for those things.
Well, yeah, but they had all those backup generators, they had all these different things that if they didn't get hacked, and if Malcolm hadn't turned the power off, which I'm sure it was him that did all that stuff. I mean, there was some obviously incompetence, but it was more in sabotage, which is like not necessarily poor defense. It's more like, oh, poor loyalty. Like that's all that was.
But I feel like if you have a dinosaur park, a literal dinosaur park, you should probably be prepared for sabotage.
I mean, stock up computer programmers is what it comes down to in 8-year-olds.
You think the Ruskies aren't going to get interested in that? This is perfect Cold War thing, like Cold War story. Yeah, the only thing I really hated was I just don't like dinosaur names in general. Why are they so hard to pronounce? I'm glad I listened to the audiobook because I wouldn't have been able to pronounce a bunch of these. I would have would have taken me twice as long to read it because I would have been like prophylactodontus. So like, also, why did they become confusing? When I grew up, there was brontosauruses. We knew what the brontosaurus was, and then all of a sudden they're brachiosauruses, and then they're apatrosauruses, and then they're chimerameriosauruses. Like, and it's all the same thing. I don't need to know that. I'm cool with Brontosaurus. Just leave it. Don't worry about.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't need the BuzzFeed article. It's like you've been saying Brontosaurus, but it's actually not. It's like I don't care. I'm good with that. Mm-hmm. Someone shows me a picture. I say, yeah, that's a Brontosaurus. Like, no, that's actually a close relative. I'm like, I don't care. Move on with my life. Why can't some be simple? Velociraptor, very simple. Tyrannosaurus Rex, very simple. Just Triceratops, Stegosaurus, those ones we know. They seem so simple. Why keep the syllables shorter? I don't like that.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm on board with that.
What did you hate anything else?
We talked about the first 2 hours I really enjoyed because it was like getting into the weeds of things. But once they introduced all the characters and they're kind of going around, there was a lot of, well, what do you mean? And then a long monologue. And then there was like, but what does that mean? And then it's just like, that doesn't really make for good dialogue. It wasn't the most thrilling dialogue a lot of the time. It was just a lot of explaining, and which is necessary. But at the same time, we already had a bunch of explaining. So when we were like hour 12 into the book and they're like, there was like a scene like where they did 10 pages worth of like restarting the generator, which was just like, what was the reason for this?
Pump
They're like,
that.
no, it's not working.
Gas
The button's
isn't
not
coming
working.
in.
It's like, no, now press this button. No, it's not working. And then it's like, now take the oxygen out. It's like, why was this necessary to the plot?
I feel like that's one of those things that would have been, it's better in film because if you're watching it, it's like, come on, get it going, like get it on, get this fucking thing on. Like, you know, you're stressed out. At that point in the book though, I was, you know, on edge listening to it. I was like, what the heck? Like, get this shit going. So I thought the better application of that was when the kids are trying to lock the velociraptor in the freezer. It dragged on a bit, but the whole time you're like, holy shit, like, get that door closed.
That was good.
Get the door closed.
That was
and then
good.
the door pops open. It's like, close the fucking door, Timmy.
Timmy's like, and I know a freezer door has a latch inside of it, which needs a certain amount of pounds of pressure. I was like, how the hell does Timmy know this
Timmy's
about
a
freezer
fucking
doors?
genius, all right? Team Timmy. Yeah, this is Glenn from Casper, Wyoming.
You've got mail.
Glenn, hit us up. So is it true? Is the book better than the movie? Keith, what are your thoughts?
No, I already said that. The movie brings this to life. If you hadn't seen the movie beforehand, I don't know how these people are imagining dinosaurs. You'd have to have pictures. You'd have to have some sort of content to remember what all these were, especially with the new names that you mentioned. So I think the movie was great. The book was a little bit much for the kids. What about you?
I loved this book. Honestly, I really did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yes, it's better than the movie because you get just so much more. It's just the movie, but more. I do think that having seen the movie, it helped me visualize. I don't think it really took away from it. If someone didn't want to read this book because they had seen the movie, I'd say malarkey. Go enjoy the book because it's really just the best companion piece to the movie itself, because you just get so much more of what the movie was, but in a more adult way. Like the gruesomeness of it, the whole like horror-y aspect is like real. So I liked it a lot. I do think that the movie helped, but at the same time, like I know what dinosaurs look like. I might not know what the prophylactic dinosaurs look like, the little chicken ones that now I know.
Prophylactic?
I think the
Not a condom?
a French letter. Excuse me. Have you started reading the Rose Code yet? It's called a French letter. And a lot of the stuff in the book is then in the sequels, movies, because they don't even touch on that whole river trip and into the pterodactyl den, like from the rivers into the pterodactyl place that Grant and the kids go in the movie at all. And that was like a really fun part of the book. So... and Hammond gets it, like I said before, like Hammond gets it in the book, and he really doesn't. He just gets like saved, which is bullshit. So I like the book better, but I don't think that if you had only read the book, I'd say definitely watch the movie. And if you hadn't seen the movie, I'd say what planet are you living on? But vice versa, for sure. So what is your favorite dinosaur movie?
What movies are there?
I got Land Before Time, which is up there for me. Great movie. We're Back. That's a very weird movie and also animated. Disney's Dinosaur, which I haven't seen, but I know it exists. Then in the 80s, we had this Prehysteria where like this kid finds a bunch of little mini dinosaurs. That was a super weird movie. And
you watch some weird ones.
I definitely haven't seen, but now I will. The Velocipaster. It's actually certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which is mind-blowing. It's about a velociraptor priest, and it's like 74 audience, 62 critics. So I feel like on a shitty hungover Sunday, now that football's over, I have to watch the Velocipaster.
This looks so bad,
right? But it's certified fresh. Like it's actually certified fresh. Crichton, though, he also wrote and directed the original Westworld. He pretty much came up with the idea for ER, like the TV series. Like him and Steven Spielberg were like shooting the shit. That's like how he got Jurassic Park. They were shooting the shit about this script he was writing that became ER. The guy gets it. I looked up to see how much he made on the movie. He had $1.5 million advance for writing the screenplay before the book was even released.
Wow.
Like this is before the book even came out. He had $1.5 million, and then, or for the rights, he got $1.5 million, and then he got another $500K for the screenplay. But supposedly he got points at the box office, but I couldn't find the numbers for that because I could only imagine, even if he got, It's like someone owning 1% of Apple in 1980 or something like that. It's like, who knows what he made.
Say what you will about Hammond, by the way, but Hammond was a good businessman. He was like, the merchandising alone is going to make this place fucking a fortune. And once you know it, the movies are amazing, and then an NBA team is named after the movie, the Raptors. Like, that's from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and like, no matter where you go to this day, if you go into Walmart or Target, like, there's Jurassic Park stuff. It's wild. So yeah, he wasn't wrong on that front. And also kind of crazy that we went an entire podcast and didn't talk about the baby elephant that he was carrying around in his briefcase.
Pardon me? Did I miss that? What?
Yeah, it was like that was part of how he sold the idea
right.
of Jurassic Park to investors. He had like a sick and deformed tiny elephant that he carried around with him. Okay, so Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton. Would you recommend the book?
Yeah, this is more on me. I think it's just, I don't really like a lot of books that have a ton of science involved, it seems like. So I thought it was great at some parts, and then deterred heavily by a couple of the characters I've mentioned already. I would put it at like a 50-50 range, because there were so many good scenes, and it was the foundation for the movie. I have a special place in my heart, but I was very upset with a couple of these characters, so that's what I'll put it at. What about, I mean, you sound like, is it top 10 for you?
Yeah, so it's tough. Like, I think it's a top 10 for me. I just don't know what I'd be kicking out. Like, I don't know what my current top 10 is.
At this point,
it's tough. Yeah, at this point. So I don't know. I think it's in my top 10, which basically means go read it, Go read it, enjoy it. If you want the horror-y stuff, just get through the first part, but like, get invested. Because the first part kind of sets the scene for you, and then it gets... And it's also not dull at the beginning. We didn't even touch on a lot of the stuff at the beginning where it's them trying to figure out, like, is this a new dinosaur? Like, is this a reptile? Like, what's going on here? And I found that to be really interesting, too. I also listened to it all on a road trip. It made that trip sail by. So, yeah, I would. Coming up, we're switching gears a little bit, and we're going to some historical fiction with a World War II historical fiction, The Rose Code, which is about some women code breakers during World War II, like I said, trying to break the enigma.
And then movie-wise, we got The Menu up next.
Yeah. Well, That's it. All right. Bye now.